Welcome to Simple Life. Well, we have an absolute beautiful day here. What a contrast from last week, even though the week did finish off very nicely. So we are gonna start putting our beds in. What is it gonna entail to put our beds in? Well, the boys are taking out the support boards that keep this from falling down if we get a really big snow event, and they're gonna stack them up. And then we're gonna start bringing down some compost. We're gonna be bringing down the compost. We're looking for about 6 inches thick, which is about that much. So from the bottom of my hand to the top of my thumb. And then once we're done, we're gonna come in and we're gonna set in our rows. We're gonna divide it all up into the beds that we need. You're probably wondering, Cal, you're doing all this work for a greenhouse and it looks like the weather's beautiful. Why would you even need it? So I've mentioned this before. There's multiple reasons for wanting a greenhouse. One thing is I do wanna extend my season and I would like to get stuff started much earlier. Matter of fact, I would have liked to already had things started, but I haven't had the chance to get these beds formed. So we will have a garden, we will have an absolutely beautiful garden, and you will be part of that journey. All right, we got this cleaned out. Clint is actually driving the excavator up to the top right now, and Clay and I are gonna take the dump truck up. I wanna talk about this greenhouse because, see, what you may not know is this greenhouse was not actually the original place that we wanted to have a greenhouse. We actually built a whole entire greenhouse on top of the hill. We set up water. We have a 1,500 gallon tank up there that we could pump water into, and that's where we were gonna start growing. We had everything prepped, and last year, almost 1 year ago, we just finished it, and we had a snowstorm. We had 10 inches of snow, and it completely crushed our greenhouse. It completely devastated me and the boys because we had spent basically the whole winter preparing that greenhouse for growing. We had got our whole mindset, everything was around that greenhouse. And then we were like, well, what do we do now? We still need to do a garden, but I didn't have time. I was working. I'm doing the same thing I'm doing now, except for I was putting out 3 videos a week, a lot less time. And I was like, okay. So we came down here, and over the course of like 2 weeks, we completely gutted this greenhouse. Tore everything off of it. We milled some new boards, put new boards on the side of it, put new plastic on it. Okay, so let's look at what we got done today, because we got a lot done today. We got our toe boards up all the way down. Those are the burnt ones down there. We got our hip boards up all the way along, except for it, we got about 6 feet on either end that we need to do. We also ended up getting most of our cattle panels or our pig panels in all the way around. Clay and Clay put all the wiggle wire track up, which was super helpful. Here it is, it goes all the way down. They did the other side as well. They're putting in the final screws as we speak. We have made huge progress, huge progress. I mean, seriously, if you take a look from what it was to what it is now. This is the byproduct of a year's worth of work. And what do I mean by a year's worth of work? Yeah, sure, we did this plastic and put this all together about 9 months ago, maybe 10 months ago. But the compost, the thing about this compost is all of it was off our land from animals that we know, that are fed things that we know because they grew on our land or they grew on a friend's land. So we know what went into them. So this is sustainable. All right, here's our compost pile. The boys are taking the sandbags off, then we're gonna pull the plastic back. I'm gonna turn the cow manure over because it hasn't been turned over since we put it here. So it's been about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. So it's probably perfect time. We'll see what it looks like when we turn it over. We'll also take a temperature before we do that because I'm curious how hot it is. All right, let's see how hot this compost is. About 80 degrees. I'm surprised it's not hotter than that. So I just learned something that I didn't know. It's amazing. And as soon as I saw it, I knew exactly what was going on. When I took the temperature for this manure, I was shocked it was only 80 degrees. I have wood chip piles that like literally just steaming. You open them up and you're afraid it's gonna catch on fire. I mean, it is really hot in there. So go down about a foot deep in this and it is hot enough to burn you. That's why I was so surprised when I opened up the cow manure and I realized it wasn't that hot. I mean, we're talking 80 degrees. 80 degrees is nothing. I mean, this is probably 160 degrees on the inside. Well, as soon as I brought the excavator over and I started to turn this over, I saw something I'd never really seen with any of my compost piles in the past. It is goopy. Now this has been covered, so I know this isn't getting rained on, but it's just goopy. And I expected steam to be pouring off. I mean, I expected this to be raging hot. As soon as I dug this up, I knew what the issue was. The issue was too much material and not enough carbon. It didn't have the air pockets. It didn't have everything that it needed. Every time you read a book or you listen to somebody like Joel Salatin talk about what he does in his barn with his cow manure, is they're putting down lots of carbon with their cow manure. Well, what I realized was I hadn't put down any carbon with my cow manure. All I had put down was cow manure and then covered it. And I expected the straw that was in here to be enough to break it down like my horse manure. The difference with my horse manure is my horse manure has horse manure, some hay, wood shavings. So you end up with a really good mix. It's almost a perfect balance to the point where, look at this, there's still some steam coming off of my horse manure. But over here, there's nothing coming off. This tells me my balance is off. So next time we come up here with wood chips, we're gonna put them in with the cow manure. And that is going to allow us to mix it all in, get a perfect balance, and I bet you it bakes off and we come up and it's like 120, 130 degrees. This is our beautiful, beautiful compost. And it is beautiful. I mean, it is gonna be lovely. There's definitely some little chunky bits in here. We got a few pebbles here and there. We are gonna drive down right now and we're gonna start filling that greenhouse full of compost. So it's going pretty good. I think we're gonna need about 2 dump truck loads, one for this side and one for that side. I think that's where we're gonna be at. It's going really smooth. I mean, it is a lot of work. The compost is really heavy and we're trying not to step on it until it dries out a little. And then once we're done with all this, we're gonna come in and put our footpaths in. It is actually dark, or getting close to it. It's a beautiful sunset tonight, really, really beautiful. We are gonna load one more load of compost into the dump truck, and then we're gonna take it down. We will see you guys tomorrow. All right, another day, another pile of compost and manure. We're gonna get this done today. Last night we really tried, we just ran out of time and light and all those things. It just happens sometimes. So today we are gonna finish this side and then we're gonna start working on that side. We are in a really good place. We have a system down, so I think we should be able to crank through it pretty quickly. So there's about 20 yards of compost here. We're gonna start at the top, we're gonna work our way down, we're gonna level everything, get it all situated. Tomorrow we're gonna come in and we're gonna put our lanes in. And the lanes are gonna be where we walk. we are definitely done for the night. The boys just went up to put the goats away. We will be back tomorrow to cut in our lanes and figure out exactly what this is gonna look like. All right, it's the next day. It's actually the last day that we're gonna be able to work this week. And we are gonna get our paths cut in. It is not the same as yesterday, that is for sure. Yesterday was a absolutely beautiful, gorgeous day. Today is a little bit on the overcast side. As you can see, I mean, it's not a bad day. Got a little sprinkle here and there, but it's certainly not what it was yesterday. Yesterday was absolutely gorgeous. It was to the point where we were thinking about working in t-shirts, and it's not every day in February you're thinking about working in a t-shirt. But it seems like every year we get a couple days like that where, you know, it's a good t-shirt weather day. What I'm doing here is not a new technique. So why am I doing no dig beds and how do they function? Well, why? Number one, doing no dig beds means you're not tilling, you're not using mechanical devices to turn the material over. What you do is you come in every year and you add a little bit of compost. And we're talking half an inch, something like that, maybe 2 inches, depending on how much you need. And what this does is one thing is because this is sterile, it keeps your weeds out. You're not dealing with the native soil and the seed bank that the native soil has because you have sterile compost. That's the first thing. The second thing it does is it has a lot of nutrients. And so I literally can come in and do this every year and just put some compost down, and I'm going to be continuously replenishing the nutrients that my plants need. Let me explain how I'm doing it and why it's a little unique. Well, all this compost is our compost. I've composted it. It's come out of our barn, out of animals that are eating our feed off our field. So I know what's here. That's one of the unique things here is this is all horse manure compost. There's some garden stuff in there as well. And I just brought up some cow manure, but that's not in here because that hasn't even begun to really break down. Okay, now the wood chips. The wood chips are brought to me by Asplin. Now we live in the country. Asplin goes around and does a lot of trimming of trees and stuff like that. So most of what I have here are coming off with Doug fir, oak, maple, some scrubby stuff. You know, that's basically what's here. We don't have a lot of black walnut, so I don't really have to worry about that. Could there be some black walnut in here? There could be, but I'm not seeing any. And for the most part, there are so few around here that the chances are just almost nil. Now, I do generally let my wood chips bake off. These have not baked off as long as I typically like. I usually like them to go for a month or two. That hasn't happened, but that's not going to be a problem. We're going to be good. The other thing is these were chipped in winter, which means there's not a whole lot of moisture in these because the trees are dormant. So the trees don't have flowing sap. So these wood chips aren't going to have as much moisture in them as wood chips that are chipped during the summer and the spring. It just means it's not going to take as long for them to dry out. That's it. So I put about 5.5, 6 inches of compost down. And we're going to do the same with the wood chips. We're going to put about 5.5, 6 inches of wood chips down. It's going to sit here in this valley. So some are going to spill over, but for the most part, it's not a big deal. I'm not going to worry about a little bit of wood chips over here. I can rake this out. When I rake this out, these little bits and pieces are not going to hurt anything on the edges because there's not going to be a lot planted right here. Everything's going to be planted in. The dimensions of my bed are 30 inches. So we have 30 inches and then we have 1 foot. This looks like it's wider than 1 foot, but at the end of the day, it's actually about a foot wide. A little bit of spillover with the wood chips. On this side, we also have 30 inches. So that bed's 30 inches, 30 inches. This bed is going to be closer to 4 feet wide. I talked about this. We're going to have other plants that grow on vines here. So tomatoes, cucumbers, maybe some peas, squash, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to work this from one side and then from the other. Because there's going to basically kind of be a wall of shade here, you're not really going to be walking across this. You're pretty much just going to be working on one side of the garden and then the other. All right, well, we are done for the night. We are not done. We only got half of this done, but that's okay. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. And this compost is really heavy. And when I say it's really heavy, it's not dense and light and fluffy. It's really well composted. And so it is very soily. We got one side done. We have the second side started. And we are going to continue to work on this. Probably not tonight, but probably over the course of this next week. We're gonna get in here and finish this up. So thank you for joining us today on A Simple Life